In my hometown village, it's top of the north. It's northern part of North Korea. If I draw this geographic of the UK, it is in Scotland, and it's quite cold. We have a border with China very close. When I was nursery, some of the local friends, we used to go to Tumen River. We played around there. And so people were not escaping those days, like early 1990s. As my parents were high school teachers, we were very much respected in our town. Our town was not that big, about 10,000 population, and we only had one primary school, middle school, and high school. And literally everyone in our town, they knew my parents. And they even made a song of my father, actually, because he was a history teacher. He was a quite funny teacher. Really, students liked him. They said to me like, "Baby, Mr. Cho," something like the nickname. When I was in my first year of primary school, it was the first time we learned that starvation was happening. So it was in my classroom, actually. One man didn't turn up to school. My teacher told me, take some of your group friends and go and visit him. When we went to my friend's house, the whole family were lying down on the floor. And they not died, but they actually didn't have enough food, so they ate grass from the floor. But some of those grass, I think, was near poisoned plant. So whole family were lying down because after they ate this grass, and their bodies gone swollen terribly. So I couldn't even see their eyes, and arms looked like this, legs. They were just lying down waiting for death. And we were all shocked. I was in my first year of primary school.
How old were you?
So primary school started 7 or 8, but I was 7 that time. And this was the beginning of starvation. And when the economic crisis started happening and people started to starve to death from mid-1990s, which millions of people died of starvation. From that time, people started escaping to China. Because in North Korea, there is public executions being held. He's one of our enemies and traitor, betrayed our Kim family. And then they told all children come and sit in front of the crowd. And the man was tied up on the post, but there was something stuffed into his mouth, probably little kind of stones into his mouth. So he couldn't express any final few words. Usually, olden days England, before executed, you ask them, what's your last words? Would you like to say anything, which I've seen in films, But North Korea, they don't allow them to express any words in case that make influence. Jurymen arrived, policeman, and each one was standing about 50 meters yard away. So first the jury bullets, they aimed probably going into the where eyes covered. The cover part was blown away because that jury bullets, they were very good shooters. You can see it after the first three shooting, his head was going down like this. And the third one into belly, the rope was cut away. And third one into knee. And of course 9 bullet covers were around there. And and my friend and I, we were just going there try to collect it, which I collected 2 pieces of it. And someone came and asked him, can I have them? Because the bullet covers, you make something with that, So he gave me 2 pieces of bread and I gave them. But that public execution, something was happening quite regularly in each town. And we thought it was normal, and we also thought he meant to be executed, because that's how they justified.
How did the crowd react after the man was shot?
Someone was vomiting, and some people just sat down on the floor. The nature of humanity, we see someone's being killed in front of your eyes. We know that it's not right.
How did you feel in that moment?
And I couldn't eat food all day. And I couldn't eat. And he kept coming back to me in my sleep in a few days. So Chinese border was quite close. A small town, but full of forest. Literally, you could walk 10 minutes, get into forest. That forest is very dangerous. Used to have many dangerous animals, even tigers. But all these trees cut away during the economic crisis because people needed space to grow food. Because we didn't have this media able to learn, listen, and even if you go to the city library, the books are so limited to read. And I loved reading from quite young age. But every time I went, the limited books, I don't know why, I was so unhappy, It's all about Kim family books, like Kim one's Revolutionary and Childhood. There are even pilgrimage we have in North Korea to learn the first Kim Il-sung's life story, or Kim Jong-il, the second Kim's life story. They may not even have a third Kim. This is their own religion itself. Often we describe North Korea an atheist state. No, they actually created, established its own religion itself, where Kims become top of here, God figures. They try to reach God. But if you want to do it, you have to silence the media, expression, independent thought. This cannot be shared. My father, his grievance was growing in his heart. And I don't know how they then started it, but definitely a few weeks before they left, I felt something going on. And they often woke up at midnight and they were chatting on something. But I just felt why they keep doing chatting at midnight. And of course, in my deep sleep, I could overhearing their conversation, something about we need a kind of new way of a plan of life. And the actual day, we had breakfast together. Yeah. But my mother told me from a few days before, like, there are some of these rices, powder, and your clothes. If there's something you need, you know how to reach your grandmother's house. And I wasn't feeling comfortable and happy to hear that. But the actual day then, when we had breakfast, my mom made quite plenty of food, that day. Because North Korea doesn't have a good food every day. Only if it's national holiday or family's picnic time, school picnic, then you cook more delicious and special food, which she actually did on that day. She woke up like 3 a.m., preparing some rice cakes and boiling eggs, some of my favorite potato dishes. And on our dining table was full of, food. And I asked my mom, is it something special day, She didn't say anything. It was complete silence going on our dining table. And she came with me all the way, to the gate, or even quite far away. She walked with me and giving me my lunch box and a school bag. And she was waving hand at me, and which I felt very uncomfortable. So I came back home, asked the teacher to go home earlier. And I was actually, I ran from the school to home. I didn't know why, but came home and opened the door. And I said, Mom. Mom wasn't there. And home was so tied up. And there was the dining table still, food was left over there and covered by newspaper and a few words, make sure you eat properly, that's it, Yeah. And I ran to the train station. No doubt, I just fast ran to the train station. But I saw the tail of the train was disappearing. And I had no doubt my parents were on that train. And I sat there and cried. And I ran to my grandmother's house. And as soon as I saw my grandmother, holding her and started crying. And she was asking me, "What happened? Is your mom died or any something happened?" And I said, "No, they're gone. They left me." I tried to live with my grandmother. The first few years was difficult because it was a difficult time all across the country. And I tried to live with my uncle, one of my father's brother. So I jumped on a train and went to his house and arrived at his home early in the morning. I was so hungry, stayed on the train a few hours. And I saw food was on his dining table, steaming cornbread and soup there. I believed that they would ask me to join the breakfast, but they didn't ask me. And they had 3 children, and which one of them died of starvation later, and my uncle also died later. It was not what they used to be. This uncle, who used to be the man who very kind, smiled, but that morning they couldn't ask me to come join the breakfast. I wonder how painful it could have been. And I went to the market and begged for food, but I always was not really good at stealing food. But there was one guy, he recognized me, and he said, "I'm gonna help you to find some food." So he kicked food for selling, on the pot. They usually put net on it because kids come to steal it. Many homeless kids I saw there. And he kicked it and he asked me, "Then you have to fast collect as many as you can and we share it." But I only collected 3 pieces of bread and we shared it. That was the beginning of my fear surviving on the street. If I say a community, this was a part of the homeless friends we survived together. And you just have to make a couple of friends to travel together. Sometimes you sleep at the train stations, on the streets, wrapped up with plastic bags, or under bridges. When you're ill, you have no medications. So we supported as much as we could. Even if a couple of them died because it was frozen weather and we didn't have enough medicines. And I was also, one time, was terribly ill. What was it called? Cholera? They said that if I drink water, you die. But it was so thirsty. And your body looks so skinny. And I saw a couple of people next to me who drank water and they died straight away. And some places they were burning these bodies because they were already got the disease inside. The only way clean it up was burning their bodies. I don't know how I survived actually. But
how old were you?
I think I was 10, 11, 12, between that time. I think it was 10. But there was someone who gave me medicines, couple of paracetamols into my hand. I was determined. I didn't want to die, but I don't know why I didn't want to die either. I don't know what hope I had at that time. I had my temperature went up even all the way at 39.8 something. I'm hot. I expected I was going to die. And literally, I sat on the street and I was falling like this. There was one lady who put a couple of notes of North Korean money and 2 pieces of bread into my hand. And she disappeared. During my homeless life, after my parents escaped, I had to travel back and forth a lot. And often I was holding... In UK, you don't have stairs where you get on the train. But in North Korea, you have stairs, 2 or 3 stairs. You walk on, get into train. So we homeless children, we used to holding the stairs while train run through it. And one time, it was around 2, 3 a.m. I was on the train holding that stair tight, and I fall asleep. Can you imagine? You are sitting on the stairs holding it, but once you let it go, your body is like this. While train runs through, if there are trees or anything, it could hit you. And some of my friends who died during my homeless life, they died by beaten up because we're stealing food, and people chase you. But a couple of my friends, they were still stuffed into their mouth while they were beaten up because they were quite weak, even not having enough food. In any circumstances, by even 1 or 2 punches, they could have even killed. And I live the memory of these friends who I begged for food on the street, or a couple of children, and you woke up at the station, you discover them next to you. They died of starvation. And these were like my children's age today. But after my parents left, from age 10, when I went back to school, my teacher, who was my parents' friend, close friend, asked me to come to her office and told me, you know that your father escaped this country. Your father betrayed this country. He betrayed our dear supreme leaders. And everyone's talking about it. Their eyes, those who used to call me Mr. Cho, who played with me, they all were turning away. And I left school. I ran away from that school in tears. And I couldn't go back to school since then. And I was almost illiterate. I mean, I still had more practice of Korean language, and my desire for reading books. Instead of, I had to collect some of the cigarette part left over on the floor, because North Koreans roll cigarette with newspaper. So that newspaper, you can read that few words there. This was the only resources I was able to start read or follow how to write the language to practice. It was upsetting me, because this was not the country where I was brainwashed. And I still thought it was a normality, of course, having same clothes, certain haircuts, and following and memorizing Kim's in our heart, and believed in that the West was our enemy, death for America, hitting Western toys in school, activism was planting hatred in our heart. The only part we were able to learn about love was from parents, family. But even this part, didn't get the opportunity. Simply, my father betrayed the country. I was a son of traitor. I tried to join the military army because I thought it was the way I could pay back my dad's crime, which I thought, because they said your father is a traitor, criminal. And I said, okay, I then pay back my father's crime through working so hard. But then they told me, no, we want to send you to coal mine. And that coal mine, you have to crawl into the cave, going down and down into the mine. And often mines collapse, no health and safety. Mainly these, the children of enemy class come there to pay back their family's crime. And arms and legs amputated. And it was that moment I was thinking, If I was living in this society and had my children would be born with this enemy class tag. And I was thinking about the future. And that's why I decided to escape.
You're only 17 years old by this point. You're still a very young person.
I was. And the whole I was about, I want to survive. We don't know what's there behind the Tumen River, which is another country, and you don't speak the language. There are full of concerns and fear. What might come ahead unexpected. So you can see China actually over there. Nighttime, you can see the light always there, and also their crops are all the time look so healthy and look like a good harvest because they have a good fertilizers technology. In North Korea, we don't. You still use human waste. You boil them, you carry them in a container. Very primitive life. So I was 17-year-old with some expectations as well. So this was the way I escaped to China. Across the border, 4 of us, we stayed in a tent in a mountain in China. By the time I arrived at a border city, it was around 7 or 8 p.m. And it was the first time I seen this outside North Korea, and full of lights were going around. I was thinking, oh, they have enough electricity, you can turn these lights on. Massive market. And I got shocked, because that was the first time I saw people were having all colorful hair colors, haircuts, and all kinds of fashions, particularly young people wearing dress, shoes, jeans, some jeans with many holes, and all clothes they were wearing English words written on it, which are all completely banned in North Korea. All this food on the market, it tasteful, delicious, and I cried and with frustration. That was my first impression of China. And I was thinking that moment, why I couldn't escape earlier. Yeah, I felt it was quite insecure. You know what it means to be arrested and sent back to North Korea, because we have seen people who were repatriated from after they arrested, and the punishment. I even saw the public execution in my eyes. So very eager to continue on journey to the Mongolian border. It was a long journey and long train journey, and of course, because you don't speak Chinese, you have to bribe money each time you see train conductor. And eventually I arrived at Manchuria station. It's the border station with Mongolia. And there I saw 17 North Korean refugees. They were on the same train. So it was a journey they put all us into together, but all of them from different areas. Some of them were already lived in China a few years. And I think I was the most just escaped person from North Korea. And they already looked like quite Chinese people as well, And some of them were speaking fluent Chinese and living there already. And they were little children as well. A van arrived there, like frozen food van arrived. After 2-3 hours driving, the car stopped and the driver said, we leave you here, and told us this is the direction to get to Mongolian border, the fence. So they gave us even cutters. When we arrived, they would have to cut the wire fence and everyone get into Mongolia. So our plan was going to be arrested by Mongolian soldiers there. So then they could contact the South Korean embassy there. And we climbed over the couple of fences. We thought it was the border fence. And we felt we were in Mongolia. We slept there. And we woke up. We realized we were still in China. In fact, we climbed over someone's farm fences, couple of them, and we believed it was the Mongolian border fence. And we lost our directions. We didn't know which way was towards the border, and we saw Chinese military were heading to us. And then we just started running to random directions. And the the military car was chasing us. And when they started shouting, stop, stop, and we didn't stop. We kept on running, and Chinese started shooting in our directions, and the bullet came near around us, and children started screaming, and we stopped, and now we were all handcuffed and taken to military prison there.
What did it mean, the idea of going back to North Korea?
It means killed. I would be killed. And that's what at least I would end up in a prison camp, because my father already betrayed the country, and it was no doubt. One by one, they started asking us who helped you to get here. So full investigation went through there. And after a few weeks, now big bus arrived there. Bus journey took us 3 nights, 4 days non-stop. And they would keep changing drivers, kept on driving, handcuffed and our legs tied up as well to prevent escape. And finally we were loaded on a bus and crossed the bridge to North Korea.
How did you feel when you crossed that bridge?
I was thinking, is there any way I could jumping out of the bus? But when we reached North Korea, this North Korean police was standing there. Welcome back to your home nations. But he started swearing us, saying that you betrayed your dear leaders and country gave you everything, And now we were tied up with the rope everyone's leg and told us, don't dare to try to escape. Now we were all allocated into certain prison cells. And we were told not to call our names because we don't have names there. And my first night there, I was exhausted. And I wanted to lie down, but there was no space to lie down. We were fully crammed, full of inmates in each cell. And leaning against the guy who was leaning me. And after a few hours, I felt, my back was getting heavier and heavier. And I was so irritated. So I was trying to tell the guy behind. When I turned my head back, his body was falling. He was falling like this. And he died while he was leaning against me. It was very, very heavy. And he was tortured before I arrived. And I felt the blood was just putting on my shirt. It was from him. But at night time, I felt he was feel hot. He was having high temperature. But of course, there were no medications. And we were given just noodle soup. This amount of noodle soup twice a day. You just drink it by one sip, you finish it. And his body dragged out of the cell through the prison corridor. And they were not holding, with anything. It's concrete floor. And he came back to me many, many nights later on in my life. And still, I never forget him. And I didn't know his name. I didn't know where he came from. All I knew, he was one of my North Korean fellow brothers. I thought I wouldn't be able to survive from there. And I thought I was going to be killed because I went to Mongolian border and even asked, where did you see my father? Of course they had the file, who I was, where I come from. Torturing men and women at night time. And they were yelling and screaming. And after a few days, I was exhausted in that prison cell. They kept on telling me to write. When I told them the same thing, they were so frustrated and beating me. And was warning me that, do you think you'd ever able to survive from here, When they told me to go, the one man came and said to me, we're gonna send you to grandmother's house. And I doubted. I thought I was going to be executed. That's what I believed in, because I couldn't walk already there. And I thought it's the time they were gonna bury me somewhere. But actually they did send me to my grandmother's house. I don't know why. But I left that prison with scars. And I left all these men and women behind. And the man and woman I journeyed with. And I still carry them with me. There was one woman I remember on the bus during our repatriation. She told me, if you ever survive from here, you must tell the outside how we were killed. And I told her, no, we would survive together. She didn't survive. And I was the only one who survived. That's why I'm telling you this story today as well. And when I went to my grandmother's house, she was holding me because I couldn't walk. And I looked so pale. And my height was only about 149 centimeters. And she was holding me and crying. Who did this to you? Where have you been? Why you came back with this? And I asked her, Grandma, I need to escape to China again. And I explained to her this story, what had happened. And she asked me, you cannot walk. Can you walk? And I said to her, just help me to cross the border to China, then I will figure out. I didn't know what I was going to figure out, but I was desperate. If I was recovered, I felt, and I was going to ask me to come back to prison. And the neighbor, the woman supervising my district, she was already knocking on doors, a few times a day. So my grandmother found someone. She helped me to cross the border second time. I couldn't walk without her support. And I was holding the plastic container floating on the water. And it took us 2 hours this time, because the water was very deep in August. And I was drawn into water a few times, and she was keep hitting my back of the head, telling me, Timothy, you cannot die here. So we barely managed to reach China after over 2 hours. And it was night time. We knocked on someone's house. We were risking it because that person could report us to the Chinese police. But instead of she did that, the lady who saw us fully soaked. And she said to us, you just crossed the border from North Korea with insanity. She asked me to come in, and she brought food, blankets, a clean cloth, and allowed us to use her telephone. And I rang someone who I stayed up there in China during my first escape. And someone came to us to collect. I continued my second journey, went to American school in Shanghai. Just you have to bet on it, you have to risk it. And we climbed over the fence of the school in Shanghai and went inside the school and told them, we are North Korean refugees, please help us. But the school unfortunately could not help us because it's a public school. It's nothing to do with politics and diplomacy. And so because they have to protect this foreign embassy and environment and school children, they called the Chinese police, and Chinese police arrived at school, and now they forcibly dragged us into police van. In the meantime, many school kids were standing and watching us in tears. So this was our process of how we then ended up in Shanghai International Prison, all 9 of us. And now we were expecting to be sent back to North Korea second time. And we know what might happen to us through this process.
What?
We'd be killed. We went to American school in Shanghai, and there was no doubt, especially that come to me, would be my second repatriation, and I would be executed in front of school children. And
Like the guy you saw when you were 11?
Definitely. And I was started crying, and thinking of how I was going to commit suicide myself during the repatriation. And one inmate came to me and asked, and he was a South Korean gangster, so we speak the same language. So I was like, wow, I'm so happy to hear the same language from this guy. And he asked me, why do you cry? And tell us about your story. First time we see someone from North Korea, all these inmates from different countries, and they're all criminals. They were all actually shocked. They said, we are in difficult circumstances right now because we did some crime, that's why they were in prison. But hearing my story, they said, wow, they have a place to go back, but we would be killed. And all these men, and they said, there's nothing more we can do, but we're gonna support you during your time here. We're gonna start praying for you. All had a different religion. And this strange gangster who was reading the Bible in this prison, but he said to me, well, if there is God, if God exists, why don't you ask God for your survival? And I thought he was a mentally gone crazy gangster, which after 17 years I worshipped the Kim family. Now he was suggesting me to pray to God, someone who I didn't even know. But I made decision to go for it because it was the darkest place. I was waiting for my death penalty. I was scared. I needed hope. So I learned how to pray. No, obviously I didn't know how to pray. So I did ask the gangster, how do you do that? And he said, you say Amen at the end of your wishes. So, okay. And that moment when he said that, the sentence came to me was, I didn't want to be killed. So this is exactly what I needed. I said, God, I don't want to be killed. Amen. I don't want to go back to North Korea. Amen. I want to get out from this prison. This is exactly what I needed. It all started to come out. And I prayed all the way through with those same words until the two men visited me in the prison, which I thought they will, it's the time to going back to North Korea. So scared. But it turns out, surprisingly, two men were diplomats. One was a South Korean guy. The other guy was a Western. I didn't know which country from. And they said, are you Timothy? And I said, yes. We actually have a surprising good news for you. He said that your group and you are going to be deported to the Philippines with diplomatic passport. I honestly didn't know where the Philippines were, but it was not North Korea. My first reaction came that moment. Thank God. A schoolgirl from the school I was arrested, international school, 13-year-old girl, she emailed a journalist. She was among one of those kids who were watching us in tears. And I still don't know her email and name, where she come from. But she asked the journalist, we were traumatized watching these North Koreans arrested when they entered our school. They were forcibly dragged in a police van. Now they would be sent back to North Korea and killed. We were young and powerless, we couldn't do anything, please help them. Journalist who was located in Japan, journalist contacted school, now got a statement and encouraged the international media, including the BBC, Washington Post, CNN, South Korea, Germany, France. Now all the media collectively pressured on the Chinese government that do not send them back to North Korea because they would be killed. We were just ordinary North Korean refugees. China could simply have deported us to go back to North Korea. But this case, China couldn't do their own decisions. They made decision that deport us to another country, which chose to the Philippines. And first time I had that feeling, there are people who recognize us, who stand with us. It was the first experience of learning what we so-called human rights, and international community. I was so happy and came back to my prison and shared my news. We were all now cheering, and we decided to have a party celebrating for my freedom. These men, they were criminals, but they were my brothers. They were looking after me. I didn't have money. They had prison bank account. They were buying items for me. Each man goes around and bought extra item. And so we celebrate my freedom party, toasting the milk, pretending as champagne. And they waved hands as I was leaving the prison. And they wished me live well. So we headed to the Shanghai airport. And from there, we flew to the Philippines. When we arrived at Manila airport, these diplomats told us, you now have choice. Where would you like to go? And of course, we didn't know outside the world pretty much. And so these two men decided to, a woman decided to go to South Korea because that's what we all knew about. But the diplomat was referring about maybe you could go somewhere, start over again, something new place. And I wonder if that diplomat was a British guy, I'm not sure. English education is not quite popular in North Korea, but just 1 or 2 years in high school, you learn English in North Korea. They don't tell you that English comes from United States because it's their enemy. They say this is English. We were told that England is grandfather of the United States. And this was a story I still deeply remember. And also, maybe one way or another, why I made decision to come to this country, one of the finest democracies, of course. And so I decided to end up in the UK finally in 2008, where I arrived.
What made you choose England?
In England, which I looked on the map, it was the end of the continent and very far from both Koreas. I didn't know very much about, to be honest, but if we were what my father was teaching me English when I was a little boy, and especially all this English I learned in North Korea, often we learn English. So definitely I still remember some of these English words from North Korea, like light, lamp, and window, and a couple of North Korean songs my mother also made translated in English, and which I still remember a couple of these songs. And I arrived in the UK after going through suffering, surviving on the street, imprisonment, persecution, execution, torture. By the time I arrived here, I was full of scars myself. And I didn't want to think of Korea at all. I didn't want to speak Korean language. Well, grateful to this country who opened the arms, giving me that second chance. And I thought it was the end of the journey. But what I didn't realize, it was the beginning of a new journey. In 2.5 years, I passed my GCSE English and math, and I was able to learn A-level. And after the A-level, I started applying for university, which I went to Salford University, and I'm studying in politics. Started working for Fiona Bruce MP for Congleton in 2018. My first election, I remember in 2021, that I stood. I was so proud to be a candidate, because this was something impossible opportunity I ever thought, but it happened. You are actually able to knocking on doors. I never forget the first day I was going around and with my rosette, feeling of happy and proud. But this house was one of the first. As soon as she saw me, I thought she was happy to see me. That's why she was going to open the door. But as soon as she opened the door, she started yelling at me, I think there was a tone of this. How dare you all come to knock on my door? You're a conservative candidate, and the party that she doesn't support. And she also said, oh, I mean, your party leader is a dictator. My party leader then was Boris Johnson, was prime minister. So she didn't stop. Expressing her anger and pouring and complaining, and for several minutes. But I mean, if I don't know about other candidates, it could have been possibly run away from when someone yelling at you. It's quite scary. You don't know what might be behind that doorstep. But when I was hearing this, her complaining, yelling, and also criticizing my party leader Boris Johnson, I felt I was so happy. I was processing that moment. The first thing I had the moment was, if it happened in North Korea, she would have been executed, definitely. And second thing, what I was thinking that moment, I was quite happy because she was recognizing me as a candidate. And so therefore she could express her anger at me towards my party and prime minister. I felt I was recognized. So I stood there patiently and carefully listened to her and every word she expressed. This is what about democracy I was so happy about. You can complain. You have a voice. Even if someone is yelling at you, there is a reason why they must. You contribute tax. You are a citizen. And this is what we elect someone to represent for you and on your behalf. And she asked me after several minutes, why are you still standing here? Often they run away from you, when you're yelling. And I said to her, well, I was born in North Korea, but if you did that to that complaint in North Korea, you would have been killed, You would have been executed. And her face looked quite shocked, And she asked me, is that right, you from North Korea? And I told her, yes, I am from North Korea. And I started explaining to her within that few minutes how I made my journey to come here. And to me, this rosette, any rosette I may hold on my chest, this means it's huge implications. It means I'm the champion of democracy itself, And actually, I felt she looked, from anger, completely changed her face. She said, "You're very brave, but we are happy that you came to knock on my door. You're the first ever blue candidate came to knocking on her house, And she said to me, you never know. Yeah, I might change my mind." On election day, polling day, I said to my party chairman, even if I received a few votes or even one vote, I think I would have feeling of winning this election. At the count and the final announcement came, and actually it was more than what I expected. And I actually also broke the record as a Tory candidate. Walking down from the stage after the announcement, when my agent came and she said, "Well done, we're so proud of you." But I felt that moment, if my mother was there, I actually started crying there, and all my friends started crying there. Before she died, my mother asked me to forgive her. She rang me from a hospital in South Korea. She passed away in 2018, and she couldn't talk, and her doctor was next to her, said to me, "Your mom has one question for you. She's gonna die soon." And the question was, "Son, could you forgive me?" And I received her phone call on a bus, actually, and I told my mother, "Mom, I have already forgiven you. And I have a different story here. And I got my education, went to universities, And now I'm expecting to work in Parliament from 2018. And she was crying and crying. She didn't want to die. I could tell. That was the power of love.